flying machines can be confusing, and there aren't a lot of tutorials on them, so that's what this is going to be. So basically, flying machines work on two segments of things. Well, basic ones work on two segments. The motor itself works on two segments. So basically, one part of the motor sends it out, and then the other part of the motor detects that it senses new air because it's an observer, and then retracts it back. So every time it's pulling it back, pushing it out, and then pulling it back. Now, as a glitch, when they were making sand dupers no longer work, which there's just a different kind of sand duper now, they made it so that one tick pulses such that an observer gives power, well, make a piston spit out its block. A circuit like this, called a monostable circuit, sends out a one-tick pulse, as you can see there. The outer repeater only applies for one tick, because this piston cuts it off before it can keep powering it from this, as you can see there. And as we can see here, this will also cause a piston to spit out its block, because it's effectively the same thing. I can use an observer here, doesn't matter. Power source, doesn't really matter. Although that'll cause this piston to spit out its block too. So, I am going to use redstone block. This is how a T flip-flop works, because what you can have here is a button running into it, and because it toggles where the redstone block is, because it spits out its block when it's a one-tick pulse and retracts it back, it makes it so that this is toggled when there's a button press. But in flying machines, this just means that it can push itself along. Like this. Now, you may have seen flying machines that go one block at a time, such as this one. And these ones work a little bit different. One, these are only one direction, so this has to be a normal piston, otherwise it loops. Two, this piston has to push away its power source, or else it'll just loop. So it's pushing away the observer that powers it, and this observer is, the arrow's pointing this way, so it's detecting this node block. And then every time it does it, every time this observer detects new air in front of it, like here, that it moved, it powers this piston to pull this back in. So this is a really easy way that you can get a one-block flying machine, is just by having a node block here, and then placing an observer off of it. So then, when this retracts, you can do it one at a time. This is useful for stuff like TNT bores, and I guess it could be useful if you wanted to like make a vehicle that you can control, or a walker. Which brings me to segments. Like I have here, the observer will detect this piston and then power this piston because for some reason observers power diagonally. It has something to do with the weird piston hitbox being too tall. It's weird. But if, well, actually that's the wrong timing sequence. But if I power it elsewise, like by doing this, it's still running into it just from the side, and then I glue it together with the honey. Then you can see it follows along. And you can use this to evade the piston push limit, because this is a separate piston than this. It's just a little snake thing. And you can do this as many times as you want. And that's how people build that kind of thing. So this way, you can have that. It can even extend this out to 12 blocks. And it'll still work. All because it's a part of a different segment that is being pulled after the fact, as you can see right there. It's something else that you can do with that is you can actually have a pusher on the front of it working a very similar way. Now for this I'm just going to have that there. I think that should work. I have to power this because when I place a block in front of here it spit out this. I'm going to delete this. and then this pushes. So naturally it'll be like this, but when it goes ahead, it'll push it. This can be a normal piston too, and that's a different way you can do it. Another thing you can do is that you can use ancient debris to push it. You can use that to launch explosives onto it, and it won't explode, but it can be pushed. And I think that's a fairly basic lesson in how the observer works when it comes to flying machines and how flying machines work in general. You should probably be able to build your own now, but